Welcome, friends. In this episode, we're going to talk about our holiday trip to Colonial America. We left Lancaster and headed down to Mount Vernon first. Mount Vernon was a plot of land that was originally granted to George Washington's great-grandfather, John Washington, by King Charles II. George's father, Augustine Washington, built the main house and called it the Little Hunting Creek Plantation. It was a 1.5-story house that was built here in 1734, when George was only 2 years old. George's older half-brother Lawrence lived here from 1741 to 1752. George himself only inherited the house outright in 1761, although he began leasing it in 1754, where he proceeded to raise it to 2.5 stories. In 1774, the north and the south wings were added, and as well as a cupola and a piazza. The mansion was about 10 times the size of a typical colonial home in Virginia, measuring in at 11,000 square feet. Because of COVID, we were only able to tour the ground floor. Here you see Washington's study and his library. Washington only had an 8th grade education. Here we are in the kitchen. And then outside there are the stables and the stagecoach house. In private life, George was a farmer, and he had over 3,000 acres of this land under cultivation, employing about 300 slaves. These are the views from the piazza of the Potomac River. Here we are looking back up at the house from the site near the old tomb. There's a working farm at Mount Vernon to show you what farm life looked like back then. That includes this 16-sided barn. Inside the top story of the 16-sided barn, it was a circular area where the horses would tread the wheat, which was Washington's main cash crop. And then there were holes in the board about 1.5 inches wide where the threshed wheat would fall down into the lower area. Here you can see some of Washington's orchards. There are many different types of gardens on Mount Vernon. Each had its own purpose. Some of them were ornate boxwood gardens, some of them were vegetable gardens, and some of them were for herbs and medicine. George Washington died December 14th, 1799, at the Mount Vernon estate. He had stipulated in his will that he wanted to be buried on the plantation, despite what members of Congress wanted to do, which was to honor him by burying him in the U.S. Capitol. The museum features a 4D film, which is excellently done. In this video, they show you the battles of the Revolutionary War, and they're very engaging, and they even make fake snow and loud booms. Later in the day, on the 26th, we drove down to Colonial Williamsburg. Williamsburg was founded as the capital of the Virginia colony in 1699. The original capital was in Jamestown, which was founded in 1607, and then it was moved inland to Williamsburg. Williamsburg is named in honor of King William III, and it was one of America's first planned cities. It was also one of the first centers of learning. The College of William and Mary was founded here in 1693. Some of its famous alums include Thomas Jefferson, James Monroe, and John Tyler. We enjoyed visiting the first evening there, looking at all the wreaths on the doors as the houses were still decorated for a Christmas holiday. We also went into the nice art museum there, which had lots of wonderful paintings and home furnishings, as well as folk art. Then we spent the evening Cracker Barrel parking lot in Williamsburg, and then get up early on December the 27th at around 8 a.m., about an hour before the village actually opened. It was nice to be able to walk around during daylight when there was hardly anybody around and take some amazing pictures. We really enjoyed the different swags and wreaths, all the Christmas decorations, and the beautiful gardens.
Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel, fa la 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 la. Troll the ancient Yuletide carol, fa la 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 la. See the blazing Yodi forest, fa la 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 la. Strike the harp and join the chorus, fa la 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 la. Follow me in merry measure, fa la 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 la. While I tell of Yuletide treasure, fa la 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 la. Fast away the old year passes, fa la 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 la. Hail the new ye lads and lasses, fa la 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 la. Sing we joyous all together, fa la 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 la. Heedless of the wind and weather, fa la 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 la. Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel, fa la 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 la. Troll the ancient Yuletide carol, fa la 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 la. Fa la 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 la.
In the courthouse, which has been restored, we were shown the bar, which only the lawyers could pass through, the bench where the magistrate sat as you approached the bench, and the stand where the witnesses would stand, the witness stand. The most common offense was for not attending church. You had to attend church once a month, otherwise you'd have to pay a fine. If you couldn't pay the fine, you'd get 2 lashes at the whipping post for every shilling owed. For more serious offenses, you would be placed in the stocks, and you'd be the laughing stock of the town. Or maybe you'd get the pillory, where your ears were literally nailed to the wood, and they were often ripped open when you were removed from the pillory. For felony offenses, first offense, you could claim benefit of the clergy, and you'd be forgiven, but you'd be branded on your palms right beneath your thumb. A second offense surely met the gallows. Later in the afternoon, the 27th, we headed to historic Jamestown. The first thing you notice is the tercentennial marker, which was erected in 1907 to mark the 300th anniversary of the May 14, 1607 landing of the first settlers on Jamestown Island. This was the first established English colony in the United States. Within the first several days, the settlers were attacked by Powhatan Indians and rapidly threw together this first fort. Disease, famine, and sporadic attacks took the lives of many. Captain John Smith was honored with a statue here after securing the peace by trading glass beads, copper, and iron tools for food with the Native Americans. Unfortunately, an accidental gunpowder explosion sent him back to England in October 1609, and only 60 out of the 300 settlers survived the following winter. A brief peace followed the wedding of Pocahontas, daughter of Chief Powhatan John Rolfe, in 1614, until later her uncle made a surprise attack in 1622 that killed 1/3 of the remaining settlers and forced the king to finally take control of the colony. The Arcarium Museum has some of the actual artifacts that were discovered here in the fort, from Indian arrowheads to beads and things that the Indians and the first settlers traded, to an actual skeleton that shows evidence of cannibalism. Early on the 28th of December, we got up from our Cracker Barrel parking lot in Newport News, Virginia, and went to the Yorktown Battlefield. Yorktown Battlefield is part of the Colonial National Historic Park in the historic triangle of eastern Virginia. It was here that was the site of the last major battle of the Revolutionary War. In the fall of 1781, General George Washington commanded the Allied American and French forces who cornered the British Army under Lord Cornwallis. From September the 28th to October 19th, Washington pinned down Cornwallis's troops while the French blockaded the mouth of the Chesapeake, preventing reinforcements or escape. On October 14th, with the British weakened by the siege, Washington sent 2 columns to attack the last major British outer defenses. The American column under Alexander Hamilton captured one redoubt, while the French under Rochambeau seized the other redoubt. With the fall of redoubts 9 and 10, on October the 19th, Lord Cornwallis surrendered 7,000 British troops here at Surrender Field, and the Revolutionary War was effectively over. As always, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please click like and be sure to subscribe for more content. In the next episode, we'll continue our trip to the Outer Banks and then to the Biltmore Estate in Asheville, North Carolina.